Hello and good afternoon, Xbox Nation. Welcome to this week's new episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special. I am one of your hosts, Mr. BoomStick XL. Folks, we have an outstanding 75-minute-ish show for you. We got two big topics to get into. They broke over the weekend. They're big talking points. And it does appear, ladies and gentlemen, that hashtag Xbox better, I believe that, in fact, is true. But before we get into the topics, before we get into welcoming everybody here, especially the graybeards, because we have a topic that I think we're all going to have to admit that Xbox was right, and the fanboys like ourselves, the graybeards that don't want anything to change, even though we accept it, it's something that we would have not have done. I every time I hear that, I always think back to Macho Man Randy Savage. You may not like it, but you got to accept it. And you know what? I think ultimately that's what it is. I don't really do a good Macho Man, but Fuzzy Belvedere, what's going on, my brother? How you feeling?
Well, I'm feeling great. Glad to be here with you today. And yeah, got some spicy topics today. And, you know, me being the Forza fan I am, yeah, I can't wait to get into it.
But, yes, that's the opening salvo, if you will. First, I do want to offer an apology to folks that thought I was going to be on Dave's show last night. I had to postpone it. I have felt crummy since, I want to say, like late Thursday. Friday, I didn't say anything. And just Saturday and Sunday, I couldn't get out of my own way. Now, I feel better today. I think because I needed to kind of recharge the batteries. Last week was super, super heavy with content and just life. And I kind of wore myself out a bit, especially, you know, pushing the envelope with the working out. So I guess I drained all the batteries, so to speak. And over the weekend, I just needed to recharge. So I will be showing up on Dave's show next Sunday evening. And of course, we'll talk about whatever is the hot news of the week to talk about. I definitely missed hanging out with Holly and Casante, who was the second guest on there. So of course, you know, again, I'm going to see them this June, which is going to be great. I cannot wait to catch up with everybody. But ladies and gentlemen, we got to get into the opening salvo topic. And well, folks, let's talk Forza Horizon 5, Fuzzy Belvedere. Because look, a couple of weeks ago, when it was confirmed that it would be coming out in the spring, we saw the wish list on PlayStation 5 hit number one for this Xbox exclusive that is now multi-plat, right? Eventually, I think this even gets over to Switch 2. We'll see, but it's definitely releasing on PlayStation 5. And thanks to Okami 13 underscore, we know that it's officially releasing on April 24th, which is big, big news. Now, there are two versions that are up for pre-order. They have the standard $59.99, $60, and there is a deluxe edition, which I believe is if you can correct me, Fuzzy, $70, right? It's a $70 one, so it's a $60 and $70 purchase. This is something that a lot of us old graybeards, you know, and of course, shout out to the graybeards who you know keep the Xbox community grounded, because I think that we are. You know, we're fans, right? We're fans first. Sure, we're consumers, but you know, we come from an era where, unfortunately, I hate to use the word conditioned. That's such an ugly word, but we were conditioned where we bought a console, we bought specific games for that console, and when the next generation came along, we either traded in what we had to get the new, or if you had disposable income and you wanted to still play the old games, you put it into your closet. Or like me, I had a shelf of just consoles hooked up all over the place. I had all three Neo Geos, two Neo Geos, I should say. I had the CD. I even had the cart. And I had about 17 cartridges, if you can believe it. I got lucky. I went to a flea market, and the lady was like, listen, just get them out of here, $5 each. And I bought like 15 of them for $5 each. Those things were like $300. So that was a big score for me. And I had all the classics, all of them. The only one that I bought in full price, and it was, oh my God, I can't believe I did this back in the days, $325 for The Last Blade. Ave Maria. I don't even know what I was thinking when I spent that money, but I did. And well, there you go. So I never really got rid of the consoles. I got rid of some games that weren't really being played. But, you know, we were we were conditioned to have this ideology. Now, of course, we're in 2025, Fuzzy Belvedere, and things have changed greatly. And like many things before it, Xbox, they make moves, they do things, and they get all the rocks and the arrows. That's just the way that they are. They've been dying for the last, I don't know, 20 something years. They've been dying ever since they were created because, and listen, let's not make a mistake. Nintendo and PlayStation have earned their spaces, right? PlayStation is one of the most recognized brands in the top 10 in the world. And there's reasons for that, folks, whether you want to admit it or you don't. If you don't like their games, and I get it. I tell you, I love their games. I just hate Sony as a corporation because they do nickel and dime the people. And I'm one of those people. So I don't like that. Nintendo is always going to Nintendo. And you know what? Maybe because I'm a fan since I was 15 years old, when they take a game from yesteryear and they remaster it and they throw it on there for full boat and I buy it, I know I'm a part of the problem, but that's because I'm a Nintendo fan. I like all their stuff. Getting back to Xbox here, Fuzzy Belvedere, Forza Horizon 5 has done some pretty amazing things prior to its release on PlayStation 5. It has over 40 million players. I believe it's over 44 million players around the world. And that's on 2 platforms. That is on Xbox, and that is currently on PC. 44 million people have played this game. That is a stunning number when you consider that it's a quote-unquote racer, which according to Jeff Keighley and several people that voted, or let me rephrase that, didn't vote for it when it should have won Game of the Year, it's too niche. It's a niche thing. You folks remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I'll never forget it. I'm like an elephant. Sorry. But I do want to bring up the tweet here. Now, I want to shout out quite a few people. I saw, Okami talking about it. I saw Post Up talk about it, as well as Hasdor Gaming. I saw Shinobi 602, Ecstasies. There were a lot of people talking about what we're going to get into right now regarding where it is on the charts for PlayStation 5. But I pulled Okami 13 _ because I do like his stuff, and he did make it very simplified in the order on how we're going to talk about this. So, Fuzzy, according to what is absolute facts, Forza Horizon 5 is topping the PS5 pre-order charts in multiple countries. And let me break it down for you folks to show you how big of a deal this is for Playground Games, for Forza Horizon 5, and more specifically, Xbox. It's number 1 on the PlayStation Store in the UK, number 1 in Canada, number 1 in France, number 1 in Germany, number 1 in Mexico and Italy, as well as Brazil, and it currently sits in the US at number 3, 4, and 13. I mean, folks, look, again, I knew that this was going to be a winner because it's Forza Horizon 5. Let's call a spade, folks. It might go down, and Fuzzy will back me up on this, as probably one of the greatest racers in any generation before it. I mean, there are some that are really good that you go back and you think about. Burnout series, especially Burnout 3, is phenomenal. And there's a couple of Need for Speeds in there. For me, it's Underground, the first one that launched on the 360, one of my favorite racers of all time. You had that racer, Motorstorm on the PS3. Again, another one of my favorite racers that I actually hope that they remaster in some way. I will pay for both for that. I'm sorry, folks. That's my favorite racer. But when you go to Forza Horizon 5, Fuzzy, and you consider that already 44 million have played it, and this kind of reception on PS5 says that they are starving on PlayStation for an arcade racer of this ilk. Let's talk about it, dude.
I think the funniest thing, and I just double checked it again on PlayStation Store, they don't make it easy to find this game. Like if you go on their website and type in Forza Horizon 5, it brings up Crew Motorfest. So you have to be looking directly for the link, or have searched on it as far as like from the web and then go and then link it that way. It's not as easy to find unless you're really digging deep. So it's almost like Sony didn't want this to have the momentum that it does. at least on the US side of things. But yeah, it is the best arcade racer of current day. And it's already had well over 44 million players in that game. I expect when it hits PlayStation, they'll probably add another 5 million players to that tally. But given how well this game is done on just PC and Xbox already, it's no surprise to me that it's doing well on PlayStation with the pre-orders and can price. Like if you buy it on Xbox and you have a Game Pass subscription, you're saving, I think it's what, like 20% or 25% or something like that. So they're paying the full 60 because this was one of those games that launched at 60. I think Starfield was Xbox's first party game to do the full $70 price at launch. But when this one launched, it was at 60. So they're paying that same launch price. And they have the option to get the Ultimate Edition, which I highly recommend just for the fact that you'll get a ton of cars right off the rip, as well as the expansions. So if you're into Hot Wheels or into rally racing and stuff like that, having that expansion in the $99 package deal definitely is worthwhile at that point. But it's no surprise. I think the funny thing is with the delay of Fable and how people were talking about, well, there's no way that could be gameplay and blah, blah, blah. And we've heard from some that have been actually that have worked on the game. It's like, yeah, that's definitely gameplay. That's actually they've scaled it back a bit or turned a few of the visuals down a bit. And that's exactly what you can expect it to look like. And it's almost like that was a surprise to people. But then they must have forgot back in 2019, I think it was, when we saw that opening trailer where we thought we were watching live video feeds from Mexico with the cactus and the wind blowing and the dust, blowing off the road, and then the car zooms by. Yeah, that's how it looks in game, and you can expect that. And it may not be the traditional way of doing things, but I think in the grand scheme of things, this game going over to PlayStation is going to show what a arcade racer can do, is supposedly being a niche, category as far as the player base or player count in general. Like arcade racers or racers in general used to be a staple in, video games. It was always the showpiece for new hardware. And it was always like the chill, more relaxed, not as competitive as like the shooters, but there was some competitiveness, especially when you had like the Need for Speed, time trials and things like that. You'd always want to, outdo your friend on that leaderboard and stuff like that. And they're going to have the leaderboards in the realms as far as like the skill score, as well as all the accolades that already exist in the game on top of the ones that they're adding once it lands on PlayStation as well. So this is going to be a fun ride for a lot of those that are just, getting, their first, taste of Forza, and with probably Forza Horizon 6 showing either later this year or sometime next year. Yeah, this will definitely, plant that seed for the audience for Forza Horizon 6. And I can't wait to see how crazy it gets, because I expect to see a lot of video people drifting and doing things that you can't normally do in like GT7, or things that they could only dream of in like Drive Club, which unfortunately went the way of the dodo. What was it, like 3 or 4 years ago? So yeah, this is going to be an awesome land on PlayStation. I encourage everybody to start, setting up tunes and paint schemes, so that way when their brethren over at PlayStation camp finally get a hold of this game, they can, make money off of them using your artwork or using your tunes and things like that. So yeah, it'll be fun.
As much as I want to talk about what's going on with Avowed, because that's the second half of the show, I do want to ask a second question to the chat, and I want to ask a serious question to you. And this is directly at you specifically, Fuzzy, because you play Gran Turismo 7 and you quite enjoy it. There obviously you had a lot to say about its launch and how buggy it was, and the microtransactions that no one talked about that showed up that completely missed a review, which of course should have been points off how egregious it was. Here's my question though. Okay, so look, Polyphony has been a developer for Sony for decades. Some of my favorite, and I'm going all the way back, folks. When Gran Turismo first came out, Gran Turismo 1 and 2 were phenomenal. I mean, of course, you play them now and you're like, oh my God, my eyes are going to bleed. But the truth of the matter is that for me, Gran Turismo 3, in my opinion, is pinnacle of the series. It is by far one of my favorite in the series, without a doubt, for a multitude of reasons. And now we come to Forza versus that. Okay. Now, the thing is this: Polyphony, they don't seem to have the same spark with Gran Turismo as they did in prior iterations. I mean, I'm not saying this to be console worry. I'm saying that is, I mean, Fuzzy will, get into more detail as to why that is, because he is the racer of the group, right? So we're gonna go based on what he said. But I think that Sony finds themselves in a very unique position because, and I mean this, Gran Turismo 7 has sold over 14 million, according to the numbers that we pulled a couple weeks ago. That's impressive because that is as niche as it comes. It is a sim racer to its core. So the fact that it's 14 million sold on PlayStation 5, that's freaking great, right? There's no denying that. It makes sense as to why, A, it hasn't been discounted in any way. B, it's not in their premium service, which in itself is egregious, right? Those are two points that I cannot sign off on, but that's Sony for you. Here's my thought and theory. Once the PlayStation community, and I'm talking about the mains, I'm not talking about people like us who have already played this. Right? I'm not buying it on PlayStation 5. I own it. I don't need to buy it on PlayStation 5. Now, if it was in the service, that's a horse of a different color. I would give it the old college effort because I have the service. I pay for it. But it's not going to go there. It's fine. What happens to Gran Turismo as a series once PlayStation players who have never played a Forza Horizon game get a taste of this? Is there a path back? And more importantly, can Polyphony respond in Gran Turismo 8? I understand one's a sim and one is an arcade. Folks, I get all of that. But there is something to be said about how approachable the Horizon series is. And listen, make no mistake, we say it's an arcade racer. Yes, it is. But they have some serious tracks in there where you could really, just drive the track. I'm not talking about breaking signs and doing jumps for height and distance. I'm talking about just straight up race that are just really good tracks. What happens if this starts outdoing what Polyphony is doing? I want to get your thoughts on this, man.
Well, the biggest drawback with Polyphony, you talked about that spark. I would say it may not be as much about the spark. It's more about their attention to detail aspect that slows them down. Like and this is no slight at them, but they are some of the slowest development devs out there for a racing genre game, which I understand why they want to pay every iota of detail or attention to detail as far as the way the bolts are, the way the trim level is on the tail lights and so forth. I get all of that. A lot of that is artwork in motion. That's great. Just for an example's sake, they used to do updates at the beginning of the month. And there was a stretch where they didn't do any updates for like several months. No car updates, no track updates. And they haven't done a track update in quite a while. And they've only added, I want to say 4 tracks since the launch of the game. They're now down to 3 cars that they just released the tail end of February. So they're already about 20 days behind their schedule from sometime in October, where they kind of slipped behind schedule. They're more than 20 days behind the beginning of the month to the end of the month as far as how they do their releases, as far as updates. And they've only added 3 cars, and one of them isn't really a car. It's the Mercedes Unimog, which is, by the way, it's in Forza Horizon. Meant as a racing vehicle. It's meant as a off-road, cut through the woods kind of vehicle, which it works well in some of the games that you can play in Forza. Like there's like the flag tag type game, King of the Hill and so forth. So that's where that game or that truck comes in handy. But that was just something recently added. And we're talking about a game that, if I'm not mistaken, has been out there for, it's going on 3, if not 4 years now. And they're only sitting at about 500 and some odd cars, like 530 or so. That being said, Forza is already on its way to 1,000 cars in Horizon. They're adding a car pack with this launch in April on the PlayStation. For those that may have already bought the complete car pack deal on Xbox or PC, you'll automatically get that new Nissan Retro car pack at no additional charge. But when it comes to Playground Games, they pay attention to details. Now, it may not be in every aspect to the length of what Polyphony does, because who's looking at the bolts on the mesh screen grills on the back of a Ferrari F40 in comparison? I mean, you can spend that time and use things like scapes in GT7 that is only a photo mode, and it's turned up to the nth degree because it's not an in-game type of scenario when you're taking photos. But if you look at a lot of the artwork that comes out of Forza Horizon, as far as the photographers or even the painters that are out there, or the creators that create these different tracks and landscapes and things like that, there's so much depth to Forza Horizon. And yes, it is an arcade, but you can turn off all of the nannies as far as for that, for the aspect of driving the car. And it goes closer to Simcade at that point, because you don't have to have ABS active. You don't have to have traction control active. You don't have to have steering assist or racing lines or any of that stuff. And it turns it up a bit more closer to what you would expect out of Forza or even GT7 for that matter. So with the exception of the diehards that are into Sims, I would say Forza Horizon is going to take a lot of attention away from it. And there's just one little caveat I want to say about GT7 with the 12 to 14 million copies sold. Many of hardcore PlayStation fans that bought GT7 either bought it in physical copy and never took it out of the box, or have not played it beyond like the first 2 tracks on the music run. Because I look for their names on like the leaderboards, nowhere to be found. Like I can safely say I have just shy of 4,000 hours in the game right now.
Whoa.
And I'm not one for like the leaderboards. I mainly do it so I can do the race recreation. Like I've shown some of my replays and things before where it's like I'm racing an IMSA race or something like that. But for the most part, a lot of the people that buy GT7 on PlayStation, they play it for a little bit and then they never touch it again. Like if you look at their daily activity or their monthly or even annual activity for it, it's like, almost non-existent. But there's daily, rewards for playing the game. But when it comes to looking at something like Forza Horizon, not only do you get daily rewards, you get weekly rewards and monthly rewards, and it stacks basically unlocking cars or unlocking features, or as silly as it may sound for some, clothing items for your character. Like there is a character creator. Now, one thing I like about GT7 as far as character creator, I guess you could say, is that they do have paintable helmets and driver suits, so you can create your own racing helmet or racing suit. But outside of that, for a Simcade game or arcade racer, Forza Horizon has it where you can, with the exception of beards, which other than Sanders' beard, I wish they would. That's the one thing I wish they would add, are like beards for like the guys in the game. But aside from that, there's clothing, there's costumes. If you want to, drive around as a Dorito chip, you can.
I'm driving around as an astronaut right now as we speak, sir. So there you go.
So there's a whole bunch of fun to be had, and there's different, like just like Fortnite, there's different dance moves you can do at the end of winning a race or finishing on the podium and stuff like that. There's team racing, there's solo racing, online, single player. It looks at your friends list if you do it as single player, and offline where it will have some of the names from your friends list, and they'll definitely give you a harder time as far as racing, especially depending on how well they do on certain tracks or certain playlists and things like that. But I think it will take a good bit of attention away from GT7, aside from those that are hardcore sim racers. If you're just looking to drive some fast cars, which there's tons of them in Forza Horizon, which, like I said, it's nearly 1,000 cars if it's not cracking 1,000 at this point, and I'm only at about 840 cars at the moment. So, and the 840 are unique cars. I probably have 860, which I have like 20 duplicates and stuff. Which
wow.
When it comes to April, I'll start giving away a lot of those duplicates, which you can do. You can actually share cars, you can share your tunes, share paint schemes, share
at
your
Mr. BoomStick XL right here, sir.
So it's, I would say, I won't say that GT7's in trouble, but I don't expect GT8 until 2030, just because of how slow they move. Hopefully they'll have that Sophie AI thing updated by that point. But aside from that, I think this is going to be a game that charts, even though it's not a full live service game per se, but it will chart like one. And I think you'll see, the numbers show something like 55 million people playing this game at some point, with the PlayStation camp being added to the fold. But I would say hopefully Polyphony or Sony in general looks to make its own arcade racer. Competition is great when you have, different approaches on the same, genre of game. But I think this is going to take a lot of money off of the table for Sony. I mean, sure, they'll get that 30%, but 70 beats 30 all day, every day of the week, all times, no questions asked type of thing. So we'll see how Sony responds, or if Polyphony even bothers, because them trying to make an arcade racer at this point would only take away from their making their bread and butter as far as their sim racer. But we'll see how that happens or works out.
We're going to come back around to this next question, not today because it's not currently there. But here's the thing, folks, right? Forza Horizon 5 going over to PlayStation is a monster deal for Xbox and Playground Games, right? It absolutely is. And it really is. A lot of people keep saying that this is, another, Trojan horse into PlayStation. They're already there, right? They already have games there. Again, these are two conversations that we have to wait for these things to play out and see if it happens. I asked this privately with a bunch of the guys. I said, what happens in 2026? And again, this is a what if kind of situation. Like I said, that's why we're not covering it, because we don't really talk in what if. But what if next year they got Indiana Jones, they got Forza Horizon 5, they got Starfield, and a couple of others. Doom is obviously a multi-plat. Minecraft is always going to be there. Sea of Thieves is still charting. What happens, ladies and gentlemen, when the top in the top 10 games or for sales, for most purchased games, 7 of those 10 games are Xbox-owned IPs? Right, because we don't expect Sony to release anything first party. I mean, Ghost of Yotai is supposedly this year. Obviously, the MLB The Show came out. That's a multi-plat. That's probably somewhere in the top 10 because it's baseball season's about to start, so that makes sense. But what happens when 7 of the top 10 games for sale, for purchase, for money are Xbox first party, and nothing from Sony is charting? That's going to be a conversation that we will come back around to, but that's not the only question that I have here, Fuzzy. What happens when the next Forza Motorsport releases on PlayStation alongside a Horizon? That's going to really put the pressure on Polyphony and PlayStation. And again, what if those two games outsell their own racer? That is going to be a conversation that we are going to have. Any last thoughts on those two questions, Fuzzy?
I think it definitely stands a chance. I know there's a lot of people that are, GT7 or die type of folks, or Gran Turismo folks type of deal. But I think Forza would definitely take some money off the table for them in that regard. Like, sure, there's going to be ones that, primarily like Forza. There's going to be ones that primarily like Gran Turismo. But having it on that platform, there's not going to be that what if, we can rely on this person's pictures for comparison's sake, or that just their word. When you have the opportunity to try it for yourself and you see that there's some advantages to Forza, certain things that I feel that they do much better, And there are a few things that I think that Gran Turismo does well as well, but like the in-track feel is the biggest thing. And I don't know if people understand what I mean by that. Like if you've raced a car on a track and you can tell when the tires are warmed up and they're gripping when you're going into the corner, that's the feel I get more so from Forza Motorsport as opposed to GT7. Like even after the tires warm up, you do have that twitch loose kind of condition. Sometimes exiting the turn, you have to delay the amount of throttle you give coming out so you don't spin out, or it doesn't feel like it's ice skating sometimes. But there are some valid improvements in Forza Motorsport in comparison that I think some of their player base, because of it being more approachable, and a lot of people like to say, "Oh, it's simcade, it's more arcadey." Just turn all the the nannies off or all the assists off, and you have that full on sim experience at that point. But it's easier for people to get accustomed or in tune with the car, I think, in Forza than it is in GT7. And you have the fallback that you have the community to share tunes with. You can't share tunes in GT7, which I think that's a bit of a miss. I mean, sure, you could have somebody do a print screen and show, oh, I set the shocks to this and that and so forth. But I think because there's more community in Forza Motorsport as far as when it comes to tunes or paint schemes or just in overall general as far as tips on conquering some of the tracks, knowing that a lot of times you'll have somebody like Phil Spencer, have it where he has to set his time on like Hockenheim or something like that, and you have to beat it to get a car. And a lot of us that are used to Forza can wind up beating his time, but that community challenge adds to the extra push. Like I'm pretty sure there's a ton of PlayStation guys, if Forza Motorsport was out and they saw, oh, Phil did, how many minutes and seconds on this track? Yeah, I can beat that. And they'd, aspire to beat that so they can get the new Porsche that's unlocked when you do that and things along those lines. So there's a lot of things to it. And sure, Gran Turismo has the more of the championship racing stuff that gets more televised or more media coverage in that regard. Trying to be a sim racer to real racer, which there are people that have done the same thing with Forza. It's just that they don't have their own sponsored, events. They do have some challenges and things like that they offer, and some rewards or awards that they give for that. But I think it would definitely take away some of the shine from Gran Turismo. It would take some of the money that's on the table. Either people would wind up buying both copies so they can do their own side-by-side comparison, or you might have a lot more people that are new to sim racing in general go with Forza Motorsport because it is easier for the beginner to get accustomed to how the cars handle and stuff. So I don't know. I don't think Polyphony would be appreciative if Sony allows that, but we'll see if that happens.
It's going to be very interesting to see. And again, it is the two questions are hypotheticals at this point, which is why we're not covering it, but we will come back around to it at some point or another because it's going to be a conversation to be had. But Fuzzy Belvedere, we got to get into topic number 2. This one is pretty incredible. But before we actually get to that, I want to thank a channel member chat as well as a super chat. The first channel member chat comes the way of Iman Burns, who's been a channel member for a whopping 33 months. Brother, that is very kind of you. He says, what's cracking, boys? Well, Boom, didn't Sony fanboys like to pay full price? If only there was another way to play those Xbox games. LFG. I wonder. Let me see. Oh, that's right. Xbox Game Pass. You are correct in saying so, sir. Thank you so much for the continued support, brother. Super appreciate you being here. A good friend of the show, generous friend, I'd even dare say, Hadari Mac in the chat. Mac, what's going on, brother? Thanks so much for being here. He says, 2 years older than Boom, and I unlocked and beat the Master Ninja difficulty in Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. This gray beard is sharp. Indeed, you are. Pat yourself on the ass there, fella, because that is tough. I mean, I did that with the first one way back in the day. I could not do that now. One, I don't have the patience. 2, I don't have the time. And I don't know if my skills are that good, but I'm not going to front. I saw somebody talk about in the chat. Do I have it in front of me? Hold on just a second. They said they just crossed 300 hours in Black Ops 6, which is pretty impressive. Let me see if I could find the name of it. Where is it? Bloody H. I apologize. I had it here, but the chat is going so fast that I missed it. I just looked at my stats live on the air. I am north of, hold on a sec, I'll tell you right now, 17 days in Black Ops 6. And the other day, I was so on fire. Like I have it recorded, so I'm gonna put the videos together so you guys and gals can check it out. I had 53 kills in one game. And so anyone using the Dragon's Breath with the shotgun, I am just wrecking dudes. And you know what? I think it was in Stakeout, which is just, it's the worst because it's all close quarters and you just killing people. I had 53 kills. I was like on fire, literally. But yep, that's one of my favorite games. Halo Infinite, as many hours as I have in it. And I have days. I think I have like 28 days in there, something like that. I have not been back since Black Ops 6 because it's so good. It's so fast. I bought the Ninja Turtles. I bought one of them. I unlocked everything else. I didn't buy the other three. I have enough money for them. I don't know if I want to spend the money. Hopefully they go on sale at some point. But yeah, I'm very much enjoying Black Ops 6. It is my favorite Call of Duty of all time. And this old man has got skills just like you, brother. So thank you, Mac. Appreciate the generosity. Fuzzy Belvedere, let's get into the other news of today's podcast. And that comes the way of Screen Rant. Now, granted, this has been out there from multiple websites. Multiple people are talking about it in the community. But I specifically pulled the Screen Rant article. I mean, because again, I like Screen Rant. It was written by Ryan Applegate. It was published 2 days ago, ladies and gentlemen. And the title for Screen Rant's article regarding Avowed says this: Avowed has reached 5.9 million players since launch, outperforming one of Xbox's hit first-party titles. Of course, they're talking about Indiana Jones. But you see, sure, that's impressive. It outpaced Indiana Jones. We have not had a further update past the 4 million. But I do want to kind of take a second and walk this back, Fuzzy, because, when you see people writing about this, I've seen a lot of headlines, and I don't really think people are trolling. I really think people are just being like legitimate. And you keep seeing 5.9 million in its first month. And they're right, because it came out in February. But if we're going to be super detailed about the conversation, and I really want to talk about this, it's not the first month. It's technically the first 15 days. And how do I come to that conclusion? Well, simple math, right? It came out on the 18th for everyone who didn't do the 5-day early access, which came out on the 13th. There are only 28 days in February. Again, this is not a revelation, and I'm not a math teacher or a genius in any stretch of the truth. It's simply math, and that's what it is, folks. Fuzzy, it has crossed, and I think this is a really big deal. I really do, because you got to remember this. Unfortunately, we were all excited for a new Obsidian joint, right? That's really what it comes down to. They are one of the best in the business when it comes to Western RPGs. You can't even fight that. But here, unfortunately, there was an art director that said some things that kind of got the community a little bit bent out of shape. There was a lot of the, quote unquote, woke conversation about the characters, and there was none of that on display. The game is brilliant. But I really think there's something to be championed here, Fuzzy, when you consider that in 15-day time, they had nearly 6 million people play this game. And we saw what happened on early access through Steam, how it was number one in the charts for purchased games, not through Xbox Game Pass, from people actually buying the early access and buying the game. And the game's $89.99, I think it was, for the bundle. Fuzzy, this is great for Xbox. It's great for Obsidian. It's even better for Xbox Game Studios. And I think that you could, and again, I'm just spitballing here, folks. The word of mouth has been fantastic for this game. What happens if we get to June and there are 10 million players? I think this would be I already think it's a record hit for Obsidian and Xbox Game Studios. Let's get your thoughts on the numbers, man.
Sorry about being on mute. First, I think the big thing that we can almost guarantee from this is some sort of sequel or continuation within the Pillars universe. I think that's going to be probably the biggest thing. This is another IP that Obsidian can work on with their teams as far as making additional stories and stuff. We see that with what do you call it, Outer Worlds. We see that possibly with Fallout, although it may not be New Vegas 2 or anything, but there could be another Fallout story that they tell themselves. And with Grounded, I would have to believe at some point we see a Grounded 2 or maybe a Grounded 2.0 where they do an overhaul or something along those lines, adding features or something to that effect. So Obsidian has been great at making great RPGs or just great games in general. So with that number, especially considering, like you said, by June, it could reach 10 million players. I think that's a great first step in a game that was not previously announced for coming to another platform to do on both PC and Xbox. And I think that's the big thing that they're looking at. And even if every one of those isn't a purchase, that goes to show that the Game Pass subscriptions and probably the growth from games like this is still, sustainable, still, able to allow them to push things forward and continue to invest in third parties into the service as well as their first party lineup. So it goes to show that, having a team like Obsidian was probably one of their best studio purchases, although they've acquired so much great talent between Ninja Theory, Obsidian, as well as things like Double Fine and, all of Bethesda and Activision and stuff. So that goes to show they're firing on all cylinders. And yeah, there was that noise about the woke stuff and what some of the what one staff member was saying, which I get it. If you're not for whatever he was saying, I understand, but don't hold the whole game or the whole team accountable for that one individual. And if anything, considering how this game being in Game Pass allows you to try it to see if this game fits what you're looking for in an RPG, I think that's the best option out there. So that way a lot of people can, decide for themselves as opposed to listening to the 7 out of 10 reviews out there. They can see for themselves how they feel about this game, which IGN, I've said it before and I'll continue to say it. They are probably more of a detriment to this industry than a help. But given that type of number, as far as what Avowed did within, the first 15 days of it being available, that's pretty good, especially considering there was another big RPG out there with Kingdom Come Deliverance. Considering all the other games that were coming to Game Pass, like there was a lot of people that are probably still playing, was it the Sniper Elite, what is it called? The Resistance or whatever.
Yes.
There's probably a lot of people still playing that.
I haven't even played it, bro. It's just been not enough freaking time in the day, man.
Yeah. But there's so many games like that. And for it to be in the middle of all those other games, it's great for it to reach that number. It was like a highly anticipated game for a lot of people last year. And when it got pushed to this year, the people still showed up for that game. And they'll probably continue to show up for this game because as the word comes out or goes out, as far as like Xbox having a lot of, great games to play and they're available, in Game Pass and things like that, I think even more people will give it a try, or more people will, try to figure out how they can, access it, whether it's through the browser, their TV, their phone, or their PC. This is what, Xbox Everywhere is about. This is what, Game Pass is about. And, Obsidian making another great game. That's what Obsidian and Xbox first party studios is about. So yeah, numbers not surprising, but yeah, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. Wait until later in the year when they probably, make mention of crossing that 10 million threshold, or the following year crossing the 15 million threshold. There's a lot of games that have been doing that as recent. So good to see it.
You know what? I think what you're going to start to see, look, when Xbox gets into a rhythm, and I think they're already there. Some people will argue with you and say that they're not there yet. I will have to push back on that. but seem to be in a rhythm where they're just hitting. And it's not just the games, folks. The games are a part of the conversation. I think when you look back, let's just say, okay, we're in March, right? Today's obviously March 3rd. Let's go all the way back to October or November. You have Call of Duty that hits like ridiculous, right? Makes a lot of money on PlayStation. In fact, most of the money came from PlayStation. It was like 64.8% of monies came the way of PlayStation. They are they're the market leader, folks. That face reality. People play Call of Duty and they didn't move over. Now some did, sure, and they got some record numbers for Game Pass. But I'm just saying, when you take a step back and you look at the games, you look at how people are talking about Xbox, you look at the future that has been painted for us, right? You hear that they have a new console that's going to be this mythical box that's going to be a PC. They got a handheld. They're going to GDC. They may show something there. You have you close out the year with stellar reviews for Indiana Jones. Now, granted, only 4 million people played it, which I think is a sin. Honestly, the game is so freaking good. It's almost terrible that it didn't have 8 million players, because it deserves it. It's a really freaking great game. More importantly, it's a great Indiana Jones story. Then that's how you close out the year, and you open the year with, of course, the developer direct, right? And they just seem to be going and going. Now, granted, yeah, they had the indie showcase, which IGN, and listen, anyone from Xbox, please take this message to Tina. She can do a much better job. I don't think she owes IGN anything. Yes, they're a big publication, but every time they do something with Xbox, it seems so half-hearted and so just cheap. So don't do that with them anymore. And of course, now thanks to Ecstasies, we know that they're going to have a partners preview happening at some point this month. Folks, Xbox just keeps hitting, right? Forza Horizon, #1 almost every place in the world for it going to PlayStation. Everyone is talking about, and we bring this right back to Avowed. The word of mouth for Avowed has been freaking phenomenal. Everybody is super stoked to play it. People are posting their different builds. I know somebody in the chat literally said that they're doing a two-handed mage build, which is freaking awesome. I mean, like I said, we're going to get into another question, because as great as the numbers are, I do have some criticism for it. I do. One, and Imam Burns made a mention of this in the chat. They got to add a new game plus. That is what I'm waiting on. I don't want to start from the beginning. I want to play on the hardest level with what I have, and I want to expand, what I find later on. I want to, try some different builds, but I don't want to start from scratch. That's one criticism. The other thing they're going to eventually have to do, and they did it with the Outer Worlds, is they raised the level from 30 to 60. I'd like to see that happen, because I really want to get the 1,000 out of 1,000 achievements, and a lot of that requires doing some things that, you have to level up your party. I can't seem to do it any further than I've already done it, right? So I've already beaten the game. But I saw a lot of people in the chat here, and I'm going to go find you in a second once I hand the mic over to you so we can give them a shout out. But and here's the question, folks. This is for the chat, and this is for you, Fuzzy. Does the success of Avowed warrant a fast-tracked DLC path? Because when they asked the art director, the games director about it, Katie Patel, she said that they didn't have plans for it, right? This is something she said. I think the success of this game, at least in my opinion, warrants, hey, people are loving this, people are beating it, people want to play through it again. Maybe they could freaking add a DLC to it that wasn't originally in the cards. Or maybe there was a DLC in the cards and somehow it got cut for time. I don't know, but it's possible. Do you think there's going to be a change in direction because of the success to potentially make some more money? Obviously, that's what gaming is all about. And maybe, just maybe, before they greenlight Avowed 2, which I think has already been greenlit, get us a DLC, Fuzzy. What are your thoughts on that, man?
It's a good question. Like I almost think that they probably, since like kind of like what you said with the green light for a sequel or something along those lines, I think that's a given at this point. But as far as DLC, I don't know if they do an expansion or if they wind up doing something where more along the lines of like what you requested, like a new games plus. Like I think we could see them adding a couple more things, quality of life, fixes or add-ons, maybe a new game plus and a way to fast track some of the leveling and things along those lines. But I don't know if they do a DLC. Like I think now I'm early in the map, so I know there's quite a bit of area that I need to explore and stuff like that. But I would hope that they would have something DLC related in the works, or that they could spin something up. Like maybe there was another island or something along those lines. But something along the lines of what we saw for Outer Worlds when they did their DLC for additional locations and stuff, and more of a story tied to those locations. I could definitely see them doing that, but I don't know. I feel they're probably at this point, from some of the criticisms and things that they would like to improve in like a sequel, I think they'll fast track that to the sequel to get that up and going, where maybe we see it in 3 years or 5 years or something like that. I think that's probably the more likely route, other than, like you said, the new game plus and stuff.
I hope we don't got to wait 5 years for the next one. I'm going to be honest with you, because look, I know we want them to make a Fallout. I know we want them to continue on the Outer Worlds. Again, they're working on something else that's not the two that are already, well, obviously the Outer Worlds the second half of the year. So it's not the Outer Worlds, it's not Avowed or Avowed 2. It's something else. And we all know what it is. It's going to be Fallout, I think. That's just my hot take. Shout out to Roland Dex. I don't know why in the freaking world I said Carrie instead of I said Katie instead of Carrie. It's Carrie Patel. I don't know why Caddy popped out of my mouth. I don't know what I was thinking, but thanks for the correction, brother. I super appreciate it. I mean, let's say, and the Ballantyne is like, nah, bring us Fallout, New Vegas too. I don't. Well, listen, the original writer, we talked about this last week, came back after 14 years. He did throw it out there that they're not doing a Fallout New Vegas 2, but he didn't say they weren't doing a Fallout. Now, I did a whole video about Fallout New York. It's because I'm in New York and I want it here. Sorry, folks, if I didn't pick your state, but I think it's time. Reggie Mobile 9 says yes, indeed. Yeah, I listen. I think that this game has surprised a lot of people. I mean, even the most stout haters of Xbox were playing this game and enjoying it, because it's a lot. There's a lot here to enjoy. I know somebody in the chat. Let me see if I can find it. Said the Bears keep beating him up. You're not the only one. Poor Crispy Bomb. I don't know if he's gotten past that goddamn bear yet, but man, he's gonna have nightmares. I'm saying right now. So E Rank says I prefer no DLC and start working on the sequel. That's a great point, E Ranks. Man, I don't know. It's I put it this way. It's so good of a game that it's a game that I want to start from scratch, but I want to start from scratch with my stuff. I want the new game plus. I think they're working on it. It's not there yet. The game has been updated, I think, 3 times so far, and they added a bunch of fixes. The fix that never came for me were 2 of the poster boards that when you kill a wanted person or a thing, they drop something. It's usually glowing red, so you can easily find. They just never appeared for me, and I've been going back. And if you see it on the map, and it's like, oh, go here to collect, this thing from the dead whatever, and it's just not there. So I'm not going to get that achievement until I do the new game plus, and that's what I'm waiting for. Which again, I will. This is just a small piece of advice, folks. If you're doing a wanted poster mission, right before you get to that whatever it is, save it, because it's happened to me where, again, it's a glitch. I've killed them and I wound up having to kill them 2 or 3 times. Now they have fixed it, because that didn't happen later on in like the other biomes. But in early on, you would kill them. They were supposed to drop something so you can collect it and say, "Hey, listen, yeah, I got his tooth, or I got his tongue, I got his tail, whatever." And it didn't drop. So I was like, you know what? Let me reload it, kill him again, and I got what I needed. So word of advice, and again, I don't know if it's fixed. It was fixed for me, but before you do any of the wanted poster stuff, save right before you go fight them. Because if it turns out they don't drop what you need, you can just reload your save and whoop that ass again, and it'll be all right. But let me just catch up on super chats, and then we're going to get everyone out of here, folks. Again, this is one of the smaller shows of the week, kind of just to open up our appetite for the rest of the week. Of course, I am feeling a little bit better today, so there will be shows for the rest of the week. But Fuzzy, we killed it, man. And chat, we had almost 700 people watching live. Folks, look, I normally hate asking for anything. I really do, because Mrs. Boom and I just love giving. That's just who we are. We're like Mr. and Mrs. Claus. We'd give the shirts off our back if we could. We are so close to 16K, I can't even begin to tell you. I'm going to do a tweet out there asking for the help, because even if you say, you know, F you, Boom, you suck, it's fine. We're 200 and change away from 16K. That's close, man. And we can taste it. We'd love to start off the year and be celebrating Xbox for all the good things it's going to do and what it's already done, to celebrate our own personal channel and our own personal goals. And 16K would be a big one. Folks, if you're not already subscribed, I do ask that you consider subscribing. If you think that you're subscribed, please check, because I know I got a lot of messages from people that they're not getting notifications, and somehow notifications were shut off. And some people even got unsubbed from the channel, which is super weird, because again, we don't do toxicity here at all. But please, consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed. If you're feeling super extra generous, share this out on the socials, especially when I put the videos out there. I did 2 this morning. That was, by the way, it was Phantom Beat, who says, bears keep beating me up. You know what? Use lightning, use fire, and make sure you dodge, because when you dodge backwards and they kind of slow and they miss you, that's a good way to get the licks in. You don't have to get them in, don't try and kill them in 5 shots. Beat them down. You know what I'm saying? Even if you got to climb high, and shoot them from a distance, you'll definitely get it. But let me catch up on super chats, and we have a couple here. Okay, now I always get it wrong, so I'm just going to call him Mac. Mac, I love you, brother. Thank you so much for trying to simplify what it means. I went over my mohawk, but I appreciate you being here. Mac drops a very generous $2 super chat. Mac goes on to say, Forza Horizon 5, who here is buying it again for the PS5? I mean, there's going to be some people, sure. And you know something? Listen, if you do, why not? If you have both consoles, try it on the PlayStation 5. See if it looks better. See if the haptic triggers actually work. Are they going to add stuff? I think they're probably going to. We'll see. And they're probably working on the new, again, we've been saying this for the last couple of years. When is the Elite 3 with the with the haptic triggers? That's what we're waiting for. Maybe they show that this June. We'll see. But Mac, appreciate you, brother. And again, I'm not going to hate on you. If you buy it, you're supporting Xbox. Right? You're spending the money. I'm not going to buy it. I already play it for hundreds of hours, and I'm okay playing it on the Xbox. But if you know, the broke boy Lewis. Well, he's a broke boy insider. I mean, his name's getting any longer, brother. If it gets any longer, you're gonna run out of space. Thank you so much for being here, as always, Will. Appreciate the support, as you always do. He drops, ladies and gentlemen, a $5 super chat and says, Call of Duty headquarters, including Modern Warfare 2, 3, and Black Ops 6, has me at over, 1,600 hours? Dude, I don't even know. I should be ashamed of myself, sir. That's all I'm going to say. 1,600 hours, not able to find it separated by specific games. Been a little Call of Duty out lately. Yeah, I just came back to it. I never played Modern Warfare 2 or 3 online. This is my first foray back into Call of Duty in freaking, like, I haven't played Call of Duty this specific since like the Xbox 360 days. Like it's been forever. And this Black Ops 6 is good. I know a lot of people like, yeah, you mixed your peanut butter with my chocolate, and there's a turtle running around, and there's a girl running around in her pajama pants, and I don't like it. Folks, I get it, but you know what? They're here to make money. I don't know what to say. I mean, this is what Call of Duty is. In the same match, you have someone running around, Splinter running around with a shotgun. You also have a girl in her sleep pants, as well as a kitty cat. It just is what it is. It's fun. Some people are real bothered by that. I find it hilarious. And don't get me wrong, I use Leonardo all the time because that's my turtle of choice, because he's the leader and he's the one that's always grounded and more sensible and honorable. That's me. If I was a turtle, it'd be Leonardo. But we have another gifted membership from our generous brother all the way from Hawaii, as he's done pretty much every day of the show. Nino Vestek, thank you so much. Aloha to you and the family. Hopefully you guys and gals are doing great over there. You're having some great weather. And again, if you did get the gifted membership, thank this man in the chat. But Fuzzy, let's sell the brands. And I say brands because it's not just your brand, which of course is the best place for anything and everything in the racing genre, as you saw when we were talking about Forza and Gran Turismo. Well, no one's better than Fuzzy for sure. I want people to flock to your channel. I want you to throw your link in there, because I want to see you get 1,000 subscribers this year. That's the goal for me personally, is even if we have to hold off getting 16K, that's fine. Sub his channel, because we want to see him get to 1,000 folks. And of course, the missus also launched a YouTube channel last year. And if you are a horror fan and you enjoy campy horror conversations, well, look no further than Fright Night with Ferocious Fee, Friday evening, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, there's a lot of horror people in the chat that go there and hang out. Sell the brands, brother. Where can people subscribe to both YouTube channels and follow you guys on social media?
Oh, as always a pleasure doing this. Always fun talking about games and where the industry is heading, and all the stuff that we get to play here for the next few weeks and months and stuff leading up to the showcase. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Greatly appreciate you guys showing up. And don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. All the support is greatly appreciated. For those that want to hear my rambles and rants on anything gaming related, the link is in the chat for my YouTube as well as for my wife's YouTube. But just do a search on the internet for Fuzzy Belvedere or Fuzzy_Belvedere. You'll be able to find me. But if you're into horror, games, movies, short films, and whatnot, definitely subscribe to the first link that I put in the chat for Fright Night with Ferocious Fee. Me and my wife are doing a podcast Friday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This past week, we did 3 short films. One was Vanilla Cake. The other one was Ignore It. And the last one was The Noise Next Door. Awesome short films. 2 of them are like 6 minutes, 7 minutes. The other one is like 13 minutes or so. And we just gave our 2 cents on it. Some outstanding stuff from creators out there that are looking to make full-fledged films. So we give our feedback on those. Definitely check them out and check out the recent episode. We'll be also doing that show this Friday. I can't remember the name of the movie, so I do apologize. But we'll definitely make postings on social media for the movie for this week. And then the following week, I think, is the Horror Con that we're going to over in Jersey. So we'll be at Monster Mania as well. But thanks so much for everyone for the support, and enjoy gaming, clear that backlog as best you can, and try to make some time or space for some more games to play, because there's a ton of them this year and next year and probably the year thereafter as well.
Well, good stuff all around, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for checking out today's show. I know that people are waiting for us to talk about the Tony Hawk news. Listen, Tony Hawk 3 and 4 is going to be announced. When that happens, rest assured, I promise you, we're going to do a whole 30-minute segment on it, because I do think it's a really big deal. Obviously, he's a gray beard, right? No, I mean, he's one of the OGs for skateboarding. He took a picture with a bunch of the OGs that were a part of his crew way back in like the 90s. I thought the picture was awesome. It's basically confirmed already that Tony Hawk 3 and 4 remake is happening. It's probably going to drop into Xbox Game Pass day and date. Obviously, there is a something coming tomorrow. 3/4/25 is supposed to be some sort of announcement. it would be pretty dope to have it as a shadow drop, because it could very well be a shadow drop or just an announcement of the game. We'll see. So tomorrow on the Xbox Factor podcast, I believe it's happening an hour before the show goes live. So we will be covering whatever happens at this event with Tony Hawk. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not the biggest Tony Hawk fan, but I very much enjoyed the games. I probably enjoyed Underground the best, to be honest with you. But we'll see what happens tomorrow. And of course, for Fuzzy Belvedere and myself, we won. We had another. Oh, that's right. We did have a super chat pop in here. Yes, we did. Eternal Shaddai. Wow, he drops a very generous $10 super chat. Eternal, brother, that is very kind of you. Thank you so much for being here, as always, and thank you for the generosity. He says, good afternoon, Boom. Question of the afternoon. If Matt Booty says a game with 10 million players is considered a success, how are we going to consider Avowed 6 million players if it's not at 10 million? I mean, listen, to be fair, it's only been out for 50. I mean, again, let's just go by the numbers. It's obviously over 6 million now. Today is the 3rd. So if we count the 15 days that it launched early access on the 13th, and you add 3 days to it, it's 18 days. So in 18 days, over 6 million players, that to me is a huge success for a new IP. Now, Pillars is not a new IP. Pillars has a long history, but it's not the same game. In the same universe, sure, this is an Obsidian joint. This is a first or third person, RPG romp. Those other games, much different. So even though it's an IP that exists outside of the bubble, it's still a new IP when it comes to how they tell their stories. I mean, again, would it be great to say it has 10 million? Sure, but 6 million at 18 days, and it could be more than that. Like I said, we got the 5.9 million when on the 28th. So if, again, we just have to be fair with it. It's only 15 days for nearly 6 million players. I do think that is a huge success, especially, and again, I'm not being like a jerk or anything, when you look at what happened with Astrobot specifically. Astrobot is considered a success via Sony, and it won all these amazing awards, right? Game of the universe. There's never going to be another platformer better than it. And it earned it because it's an amazing freaking game. But it only sold 1.5 million, and they consider that a success, right? I consider, Indiana Jones a success when you look at how it was the rave reviews, but only at 4 million. That's a bit disappointing. Now, where it is now, I don't know. And I feel fairly sad because, I mean, listen, if you didn't play Indiana Jones, honestly, you should give it a shot. It is an amazing story, especially if you were a fan. But I do think this is a huge success. And I really do believe by the time we get to June, this is one of those games that it's just going to keep growing on word of mouth. And people are still playing it. And when they add a new game plus, I think it's going to change a lot of minds. A lot of people are going to want to play it because a lot of us are going to go back to it. And we're going to keep posting our pictures, keep posting our videos, and new people are going to find it. People are like, oh, what is this? That looks awesome. And it's going to keep growing. But thank you as always, brother. Super appreciate that. Listen, folks, we're going to get on out of here. A big thank you to over 700 people that were watching live across Twitch, YouTube, and X. We super appreciate that many people checking out the show, no matter where you're watching from. And I want to thank all the super chats and the channel member chats that continue to come in to support the channel. We greatly appreciate it. And we're going to do some big things towards the end of the year regarding the super chats, as we do every year. And I do want to close the show with something that's incredibly important to me, folks. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. To live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special.